Hello, welcome to Wall to Wall Vinyl. My name is Leslie, and I will be doing a tutorial with you tonight regarding sublimating on a yard sign using 651 Oracal clear vinyl. For tonight's project, we will be using just regular corrugated signs. This is just a white sign which I got from um, Amazon. I prefer the 18-inch by 24-inch sign. But they do have different sizes. They have 12 by 18, so if you wanted to go a little bit smaller, that's an option as well. Before we get started, just a couple of items. If you are watching this on my wall-to-wall vinyl business page, please also join the wall-to-wall vinyl group, Sublimation Designs and More on Facebook. And if you are not part of the group, please join. If you're part of the group, also please follow me on YouTube. Look for Wall to Wall Vinyl and you will see it come up. And if you can follow and like me there, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe. Also, if you can leave the keyword #wall, the number 2 wall, then that will let me know you are watching the initial broadcast. And if you're watching it on rewind, please leave the hashtag rewind so that I can help. It just helps me kind of track who is watching and when they are watching. So thank you for that, and let's get started. I have a lot of people. This is how I started, was in the vinyl portion of crafting, and so the fact that we can do both together is really cool, and I'm excited to show you. So this is I just wanted to show you a couple different things. I get asked often by people, well, can we sublimate on white vinyl, and how does the whole process work? Well, I'm going to run you through the process tonight, but I wanted to explain a couple of things. So this again is a sublimation on clear Oracal vinyl. So I want you to notice the colors. This is a royal blue, and you can see it's vibrant, pretty. The black's pretty. You can see the more muted images, like for instance, little girl's hat. It's a fairly light photograph, and you can see all of that. That is because it is on clear, but it also is because it's backed on white. So what happens during the sublimation process with vinyl is that the sublimation ink is actually, what it is applied to is the adhesive in the vinyl. So if you have this image, you can see now, if I pull it away from the white backing, you can still see fairly well, and part of that's because of the white wall behind me, or the lighter wall. But you see, if you do anything, if I put it up against my face, it becomes much harder to see any of the muted distinguishing factors of the little girl. So that is because it's clear. So you'll always want to back your clear with something white, be that a board, be it your corrugated yard sign. Sometimes I have in the past, if I'm making stickers for something, then I will back it with white vinyl. So then that leads me to the next question people ask me frequently, and that is, well, can I just use white vinyl? You can, but I want you again to notice the vibrant colors of this. This is the exact same image, and that is on white vinyl. You can see it's a little bit more muted. The reason for that is because, again, it's being picked up by in the adhesive on the back. So if I flip that over, there's your very vibrant blacks, royal, and then because it's backed on the front with the white vinyl, it's very pretty, very vibrant, very pretty. So that is the difference. That is why I prefer to use clear vinyl and then back it with something white. This is my way of doing things. Everybody has a little bit of different ways of doing things, and I would like to thank, I picked up this method through a mentor of mine. I don't even know that he knows he's a mentor of mine, but Mr. Jeff Griffiths is was very helpful to me when I got started, and I appreciate him very much. So let's go ahead and get started with this. I will be using my clamshell heat press today. And because it is a bigger project, I'm also going to be using a stabilizer board. Now, with my stabilizer board, it is just a piece of MDF hardboard. It's about 1/8 of an inch thick, and it works really, really well for moving my designs around without, I can put my substrate and my design on here, move it all the way around, and not have it disrupted in any way. So that is very preferable. I am going to protect my board because if off-gassing happens, it gets trapped in the fibers of the board, and then I do another project, it's going to transfer to another, the other project. Then I also have cut a piece of Oracal vinyl. I purchased my Oracal generally from US Cutter. They are my favorite supplier for that. And I generally get the 24-inch, and I think it's 50 feet or 50 yards or something. This is my design. And for those of you that have seen me do doormats and whatnot, generally I cut my design down right to the design border so that you can, for lining up. For this purpose, I left a border. I left what was left of my paper after printing with the sole purpose of, you are going to have, sometimes the paper will stick. I think I've got mine down, and we'll talk about this as we start pressing, what paper I use, and the reason for that, so that we can try to prevent sticking of the paper. But in case you do, you want some movement on your vinyl. You want some leniency so that it's not right where your design is, and you don't mess that up. Then I am also going to grab 2 pieces of blowout paper from the top, as this is a big design. And then we'll grab our design. So I'm going to go ahead and place my design here. One thing I want you to be mindful of with your board is that the placement of your design in relation to your press. Try to use as much of your press as you can, and sometimes when you've got a board there, it becomes easy to focus out, particularly when you're working under the heat of the heat press. It becomes easy to put it out here, and then you're not using your press as well as you could. So just be mindful of that. So I'm going to go ahead and move that over here. It gives me some good room on my vinyl in case I get sticking or edges that are rough, then it will save me losing part of my design. And then I'm going to go ahead and put blowout paper over it because, again, I want to protect my top platen. It is an investment, and I want to make sure I'm protecting it. And then I just want to make sure that my entire design is underneath the heat press, or at least that portion that I'm looking for. This will take a total of 4 presses to get everything because it is a larger substrate. So I'm going to go ahead and put my, start pressing. The temperature and time for this is different than with our usual substrates. For this, we're going to use the temperature of 320 for 90 seconds. I have firm pressure, and that seems to help with the seam a little bit. And that is the reason, when we started talking, that is the reason I do these little guys. Anytime I've been pressing other things, and then I'm getting back to doing vinyl. You want to make sure you do some small designs that you tape together. Same exact process, just really little. The reason for that is you want to be able to get your pressure. The seams are a little bit harder with vinyl, And so you want to make sure you get your pressure right. So instead of wasting or completing a whole project or pressing a big piece of vinyl, a big design that you've wasted a lot of ink on, that way you're getting your pressure appropriate on small pieces of vinyl with smaller designs, so that you're wasting far less, and making sure that your pressure is correct and ready to go. So we've got about 15 seconds left, and then what we're going to do is just shift our entire board down so that we can get our next section. So I'm just going to make sure again, I'm going to lift up my paper and just make sure that my entire design is on this end is under, because we've already pressed that other side. And then we're going to go ahead and start pressing that side. Like I said, it's very firm pressure, and that's going to help with that center seam. I will show you when I'm done here. One of the things I have a lot of people text me about, or I have, is that the paper can stick. So I found a couple things that have been very helpful with preventing that. The first one is thin paper is terrible for this. It will stick every single time. And I don't know about you guys, but I consider my time valuable, and I don't have the time to sit and scrub paper off. So heavier paper is preferable. I am using Single J's paper. I love Single J's paper. It just is, the colors are vibrant. It's just a really, really good product. But one of the things I like about Single J's paper is that it's heavy. And so for this project, I have not had any problems with anything I've done with Single J's paper and vinyl. I have not had any problems with the paper sticking. I haven't had to scrub it. I haven't had to do anything. And that is great, because I just don't have the time or the patience to do that. The other thing I wanted to talk about is when I first started doing these, I did these 3 years in a row, 2 years in a row. I did not do last year, just because things were a little bit chaotic for me last year. All right, you guys, real quick, I'm going to interrupt because I want you to see what I mean by being able to just move my board around. If you watch, I'm not disrupting my blank or my design in any way. And then I'm able to move my board to wherever I need it and complete my press. So we're going to go ahead and do 2 more sections. And so like I was saying, I did this a couple years ago, and I posted them on my local yard sale sites, and I posted them for $35 per sign, and not 15 minutes later, someone posted some for I think 15 or 20, and I felt defeated, and I actually considered taking it down, but I didn't, and I started to get orders. And then from that, each year, I've had those same people, or by word of mouth, friends of those people contact me wanting yard signs. I think, and that was just graduation that I did that year. And I think I did 15 or 18 signs that year. And some people that print and do that all the time, that might be small potatoes. But for me, it was a big deal, and each year it's grown. So I guess my ongoing topic that we talk about in almost every live that I talk about is that we are our own limit, meaning that a lot of times we let other people and their thoughts of us or our product, or comparing ourselves to other people, we let that dictate what steps we're going to take. And So I would just encourage you to stay with it. There will be people that will look at what products you're offering, and for whatever reason, they will choose yours over someone else's. And if you've given them a good product, then you will, they'll send friends to you, and you'll see it start to spiral, and you'll see it continue to grow. So I would just encourage you to keep that in mind and not limit yourself based on those things we just discussed. So one thing I do like to see, like I can see right here, I have a part, and you can see this right through the back. I can see through the back that I can see marbling, meaning that I didn't get a good press right there. I hope you guys can see that. Let me see if I can pick this up just a little bit. You see that on my R right there? I didn't get a good press. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that back underneath the press here in just a second. And that sometimes happens with the vinyl. You can usually see it where you're not getting a good press and adjust for that by just placing the corner back down. A lot of times, like I just said, I can actually see the marbling and see that that's not a good coverage right there, just through the back of the paper. So we're going to go ahead and put that back under. So we've got about 10 more seconds, then we'll move that back under. And that can be for a number of different things. Sometimes if the vinyl curls up a little bit, and that would have been the first one that I did. Sometimes that can be the cause of that. But whatever the reason, that's what I love about this board, is it's a pretty easy fix to just put that back under and repress it. Now while that's pressing, we'll look at the other side and make sure it's generally on the edges that you see that. And it looks like this pressed really, really well. So if you can see, this is one thing that I really love about this paper, is that generally when you will find some papers, and it looks like this side's going to be a little bit harder to get up. I do wonder about right there. If you notice that your design paper is sticking to the vinyl, just go ahead and pull the vinyl out from the press and let it cool, and then it will peel right off. Don't try to peel it off when it's hot, or it becomes a hot mess, and that's when you end up having to scrub it to get your paper off. So I just want to make sure. Oh, I was worried, but it looks like it's going to be just fine. So we'll let that last little piece press. But you can see once I had that out from under the press and let it pull a little bit, how easy that all peeled up. I'm just going to check one more thing. And that looks like it's going to be great. Looks like it pressed great. All right, so I'm going to flip this around again and just make sure all my edges look good while I'm letting this cool down a little bit. If, like I said, if you try to pull it up when it's too hot, actually, I'm getting this to press on the side. So I'm still having an issue with that one side. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that right. And that is because I'm going to show you right now that I am a human. And yeah, I totally just repressed the wrong side again. So it's going to get double coverage even though it didn't need it. So we're going to press the right side where we were seeing where we were not getting a good transfer. So give me just a second and we'll be done with that. Then we will turn the board around, just make sure we got a good press, that everything looks good. Everywhere else that I can see on there looks really, really good. But I like to look for those little areas, because trying to get your design back exactly where it was, it's doable, but it's a lot harder. So it's a lot easier just to take the time and do it while it's under the press. Barely lift up a corner to see if it pressed okay, then just put it back down and put it back under if it did not press. Transfer all the ink. And like I said, there can be a number of reasons why that didn't happen. My guess is that maybe the vinyl was curled under, and so it created an uneven pressure with the design so that the ink didn't transfer appropriately. So we'll let this press for a couple more seconds, and then we will move it around so that we can see and make sure that we got good coverage that time. Just a reminder, because we get in the habit of doing anything over 350 for a lot of our substrates, this is 320 degrees for 90 seconds, but firm pressure. All right, so I'm going to flip this around, and we're just going to make sure that we went ahead and transferred the rest of that ink. So I'm going to let it cool down for just a second so that my paper doesn't stick. And I think we're going to get good coverage this time around. Probably would have got it last time had I not done the wrong side. So that was my bad. Oh yeah, that looks good now. Okay, so generally what I would tell you is to let this cool a little bit. So I'm just gonna kind of pull it out and stabilize my board with my hand just to let this whole thing cool down. The paper is gonna stick right during the middle, and the reason for that is because I taped my design. So now the tape is stuck on the paper. Right there, you can see where it's stuck. We're just going to go ahead and pull it off there. And it looks like the paper is ready to come off. And you can see how pretty that pressed. Really, really nice press. So let me get this out, and then I'll show you the finished product. And then I hope you will join me for part 2. I am going to move down to a little bit bigger area. I could do this in my work space. However, for the tutorial purpose, I'm going to move it down on a bigger table so that you can see how I apply the vinyl to the sign. You can see how pretty that pressed. And one thing I wanted to note is how easy the paper came off. If it does stick a little bit, take it out from under the heat, let it sit and cool off, and then try pulling the paper off. And occasionally you will have some areas that you might have to just get a damp rag and rub off. But truly, I have found through the last couple of years that the heavier the paper, the better. I love the single J's paper for that reason. So you can see how beautiful, and that is what it will look like on the sign. You can get a good image because you've got the white backing of the Oracal vinyl. So you can see what that's going to look like, but we will transfer it to the sign here shortly. So stay with me for part 2. Thanks so much.